My name is Lila. I'm an inventor, a dreamer, and, until recently, a cog in the machine of one of the most powerful tech companies on the planet, Nexus Innovations. You might not know me, but you've probably used something I helped create. My ideas have powered gadgets that sit snugly in your pocket or hum quietly in your home office. But this isn't just my story. It's also about betrayal, revenge, and how sometimes justice comes wrapped in unexpected packages. Let me start by saying this. I never thought I'd be here, sitting alone at 2 a.m., staring at the screen of my laptop as emails flood in from panicked executives at Nexus. It wasn't supposed to end like this, or maybe it was exactly how it had to go. Either way, what happened next changed everything, for them, for me, and for everyone who ever trusted someone else with their dreams. It all began 6 months ago when I walked into Greg's office, the CEO of Nexus Innovations, and saw him smiling behind his desk like he always did before delivering bad news. Greg was charismatic, charming even, but there was something hollow about him, like his soul had been replaced by stock options and quarterly reports. He gestured for me to sit down, and I knew immediately that something was wrong. I could feel it in the air, thick and heavy, pressing against my chest. "Lila," he said, leaning back in his chair with an expression that bordered on smugness, "we need to talk." I nodded, though my stomach churned. This wasn't unusual. Greg often called me into meetings to discuss projects or brainstorm new concepts. But this time felt different. His tone wasn't collaborative, it was final. "We're letting you go," he said bluntly without preamble. The words hit me like a freight train. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. All those years of late nights, endless pitches, and sleepless weekends poured into this company, only for him to dismiss me so casually. "Why?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Greg shrugged, as if firing me were no more significant than canceling a lunch order. "Budget cuts," he lied smoothly. "We're restructuring, and unfortunately your position, well, let's just say it's redundant." Redundant. The word stung worse than any insult because I knew it wasn't true. My work wasn't redundant, it was groundbreaking. Just last week, I'd presented a prototype for a self-charging battery system that could revolutionize renewable energy storage. And now, he was telling me I was expendable? But the worst part came after he handed me the severance package. As I flipped through the paperwork, still reeling from the shock, Greg dropped another bombshell. "Oh, and by the way," he added almost casually, "the patent application for the quantum link interface? That's moving forward under Nexus ownership." The room spun. Quantum link was my invention. Not theirs. Mine. I'd spent 3 years developing it. A neural interface designed to merge human thought with artificial intelligence seamlessly. It was supposed to change lives, make technology more intuitive, more personal. And now Greg was claiming it as his own. "I don't understand," I managed to choke out. "That patent hasn't been filed yet. It's still pending approval." He smirked, and for the first time, I truly hated him. "Technically, yes. But since you developed it while employed here, it belongs to Nexus. Standard clause in your contract." I wanted to scream, to argue, to demand justice. But deep down, I knew fighting him would be futile. Nexus had lawyers, resources, connections. They could crush me in court before I even got started. So instead, I took the papers, signed them with trembling hands, and walked out of that building feeling like I'd left a piece of myself behind. What Greg didn't know, what no one at Nexus knew, was that I'd seen this coming. Over the past year, I'd noticed subtle shifts in the company culture. Projects I spearheaded were credited to others. Ideas I pitched during meetings mysteriously appeared later as someone else's brainchild. At first, I chalked it up to paranoia, but then the signs became impossible to ignore. I started preparing for the inevitable, embedding safeguards into my work that only I understood. One of those safeguards was buried deep within the quantum link code, a hidden trigger that rendered the entire system useless unless activated by a specific key. Without that key, every device running quantum link would fail spectacularly, rendering Nexus's flagship products illegal to sell. I called it my insurance policy, though I never imagined I'd actually use it. After leaving Nexus, I disappeared off the grid for a while. I rented a tiny apartment in a quiet neighborhood, bought groceries in cash, and avoided social media entirely. I needed time to think, to process what had happened and decide what to do next. Part of me wanted to move on, to forget about Nexus and focus on building something new. But the other part, the part fueled by anger and hurt, refused to let go. Every time I thought about Greg stealing my life's work, my blood boiled. Then one night, I received an email from an anonymous sender. The subject line read, "They're selling quantum link." At first, I assumed it was spam. But when I opened the attachment, my heart stopped. It was a press release announcing Nexus's acquisition of a major tech conglomerate and their plans to integrate Quantum Link into millions of devices worldwide. The launch date was set for 3 months from now. If I didn't act fast, they'd profit off my invention forever, leaving me with nothing but bitterness and regret. That's when I decided to activate the trigger. Activating the trigger wasn't as simple as flipping a switch. First, I needed access to Nexus's servers, which meant hacking into their systems. A risky move, given their top-tier cybersecurity measures. Luckily, I'd anticipated this possibility long ago and planted a backdoor during my tenure at the company. It wasn't easy, but after weeks of careful planning and sleepless nights, I finally breached their firewall. Once inside, I located the Quantum Link source code and initiated the trigger sequence. Within hours, every prototype and beta version of the interface began malfunctioning. Devices overheated, crashed, or simply refused to power on. Panic spread through Nexus like wildfire as engineers scrambled to diagnose the issue, completely unaware that the problem originated from within the code itself. Meanwhile, I sat in my dimly lit apartment, watching the chaos unfold online. Forums erupted with complaints from early adopters who'd purchased Quantum Link-enabled gadgets. News outlets picked up the story, speculating about potential safety hazards and regulatory violations. Lawyers weighed in, warning that Nexus could face massive lawsuits if they continued selling defective products. And through it all, I remained invisible, a ghost haunting the ruins of my former employer. But revenge wasn't enough. Not anymore. Somewhere along the way, I realized that taking down Nexus wouldn't fill the void left by losing my job, or my trust in humanity. What I needed was connection. Someone who understood me, flaws and all. Someone who believed in the same things I did. Innovation, integrity, and the power of ideas to change the world. And then, unexpectedly, I found him. His name was Theo, and he worked as a freelance journalist covering emerging technologies. We met at a coffee shop where I often went to write and reflect. He recognized me, not as the disgraced ex-employee of Nexus, but as the inventor behind several high-profile patents. When he approached me, I braced myself for questions about Quantum Link and the recent scandal. Instead, he smiled warmly and said, "You look like someone with a lot on their mind. Mind if I join you?" Something about his sincerity disarmed me. For the first time in months, I felt comfortable talking to someone outside my inner circle. We discussed everything from AI ethics to sustainable energy solutions, and for a few blissful hours, I forgot about Nexus entirely. As our conversations grew more frequent, I found myself opening up to Theo in ways I hadn't thought possible. He listened without judgment, offering insights that challenged me to see my situation differently. Slowly but surely, he helped me realize that revenge wasn't the answer. It was merely a stepping stone toward something greater. But Theo didn't know the full extent of my involvement in Nexus's downfall. And as much as I wanted to tell him, I couldn't risk jeopardizing what we had. Because for the first time in years, I felt alive again. Whole. Loved. Little did I know, Theo had secrets of his own. Theo and I fell into a rhythm over the following weeks. Our conversations became a lifeline for me, a way to anchor myself when the weight of what I'd done threatened to pull me under. He had this quiet confidence about him, a steadiness that made me feel safe in ways I hadn't felt in years. With him, I could almost forget the chaos I'd unleashed on Nexus. Almost. But Theo wasn't just some passive listener. He was sharp, observant, and unrelenting in his curiosity. One evening, as we sat across from each other at our favorite cafe, he leaned forward with an intensity that caught me off guard. "You know," he said, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly, "there's something about the Quantum Link fiasco that doesn't add up." I froze, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I forced a laugh, trying to sound casual. "What do you mean?" "It seems pretty straightforward. Defective product, corporate greed, bad PR, end of story." He raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. "Maybe, but there are whispers online. People speculating about sabotage, insider interference. Some even suggest it's personal." My stomach twisted into knots. Was he fishing for information? Did he suspect me? Or was this just another journalist chasing leads? "Sounds like conspiracy theory territory," I replied carefully, avoiding his gaze. "People love drama. They'll say anything to make headlines." Theo studied me for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he smiled faintly. "You're probably right. Still, it's fascinating how one small glitch can bring down an entire empire." His words lingered long after we parted ways that night. As I walked home, my mind raced with questions. How much did Theo really know? And more importantly, why did it feel like he was testing me? A few days later, I received another anonymous email. This time, the message was short and cryptic. "Be careful who you trust." At first, I assumed it was a warning from someone inside Nexus, perhaps a disgruntled employee or whistleblower who knew about my role in the Quantum Link debacle. But as I stared at the screen, unease settled over me. What if it wasn't from Nexus at all? What if it was about Theo? Doubt crept into my thoughts like poison. Had Theo been too perfect from the start? His timing, his interest in tech scandals, his uncanny ability to read between the lines. It all seemed suspicious now. Maybe he wasn't just a curious journalist. Maybe he was working for them. I didn't want to believe it. The idea of Theo betraying me felt worse than anything Greg or Nexus had done. But paranoia has a way of eating away at your sanity, and soon I found myself second-guessing every word he'd ever said to me. When I saw Theo again, I couldn't shake the tension coiled tight in my chest. We met at the park near my apartment, sitting on a bench beneath the shade of an old oak tree. For once, the air between us felt heavy, charged with unspoken questions. "Is everything okay?" Theo asked, concern etched on his face. "You seem distant." I hesitated, torn between confronting him and keeping my suspicions to myself. Finally, I decided to take the risk. If he was lying to me, I needed to know. "I got an email," I said quietly, not meeting his eyes. "Someone warned me not to trust anyone." Theo frowned. "That's unsettling. Do you have any idea who sent it?" "No," I admitted. "But it made me wonder." I trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "Made you wonder what?" he pressed gently. "Whether you're really who you say you are." I blurted out, regretting the words the moment they left my mouth. Theo's expression shifted from confusion to hurt, and then to something else entirely, resignation. He sighed deeply and ran a hand through his hair. "I guess I should have told you sooner," he said finally. "I'm not just a journalist, Lila. I work for Aegis Tech, a cybersecurity firm hired by Nexus to investigate the Quantum Link breach." My blood ran cold. Betrayal burned hot in my veins, but before I could react, Theo held up a hand to stop me. "Wait," he said firmly. "Before you say anything, let me explain. Yes, I was assigned to look into the issue. But when I met you, everything changed. You're not the person they described, a bitter ex-employee out for revenge. You're so much more than that. And honestly, I don't care about Nexus anymore. All I care about is you." I stared at him, unsure whether to believe him or run as far away as possible. His confession shattered the fragile trust I'd built with him, but there was something genuine in his voice, something raw and vulnerable that resonated with me. "If you truly cared about me," I said softly, "you wouldn't have lied to me." "I know," he admitted, looking down at his hands. "And I'm sorry. I messed up. But please, give me a chance to make it right." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched thin, brittle with uncertainty. Part of me wanted to walk away, to protect myself from further pain. But another part, the part that still believed in connection, in love, whispered that maybe, just maybe, Theo deserved a second chance. Over the next few weeks, Theo proved himself in ways I never expected. He resigned from Aegis Tech, severing ties with Nexus completely. He helped me navigate the fallout from the Quantum Link scandal, offering advice and support without judgment. Slowly, painstakingly, we rebuilt the trust that had been broken. But the road ahead wasn't easy. Nexus wasn't going to let me, or Theo, off the hook that easily. They filed lawsuits, launched smear campaigns, and did everything in their power to discredit us. Yet through it all, we stood together, united by a shared vision of justice and redemption. And somewhere along the way, amidst the chaos and uncertainty, I realized something important. Revenge may have started this journey, but it wasn't what would define it. Love was. Love for the truth, for innovation, and most of all, for the person who reminded me that even in the darkest moments, hope could still shine through. As the legal battles with Nexus raged on, Lila and Theo grew stronger together, their bond unshakable. With Theo's help, Lila exposed the unethical practices at Nexus, how they had stolen not just her patent but countless others' ideas, and turned public opinion against them. The company crumbled under the weight of its own greed, while Lila emerged as a symbol of resilience and integrity. In the aftermath, Lila founded her own tech startup, dedicated to ethical innovation and giving creators control over their work. Theo joined her, trading investigative journalism for a role shaping a better future alongside her. Together, they built something beautiful, not just a business, but a life rooted in trust, love, and purpose. Years later, sitting on the porch of their home as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lila looked at Theo and smiled. "You know," she said softly, "I never thought revenge would lead me here." "Me neither," he replied, taking her hand. "But I'm glad it did." And for the first time in what felt like forever, Lila knew she was exactly where she was meant to be, with Theo by her side, building a world that valued honesty and heart over profit and power.